Hello, so now that we're done with iteration 4, we need to move on and add the other two, the green and the alpha. Before I do that, I forget to push the changes again. So we commit. So here is we completed iteration 4 and added blue color in addition to the red. And then push to remote, commit. You always want to keep your source code updated, so if something happened, you can always find the most recent that you worked on. And we're done with the testing, so now in iteration 5 is using all the components. So we go here, iteration 5, color with, or basically it's adding green and alpha. So the scope or the problem formulation will define the scope, add ability to select green and alpha components as well, and display the resulting color. And then the testing will be first repeat previous testings, and then testing scenario 2 will be red 0, blue 0, and green 0, alpha 1. You should get black. Testing scenario 3, same, 0, blue 0, green 1, alpha 1, you should get green. And if I put all of them to 1, blue 1, green 1, alpha 1, I should get white. And then mix testing scenario 5 and mix the distribution. There is one where you put the alpha 0, you'll see the underlying color, which in our case is white. So the solution formulation, the model. So the model, we're gonna add, we'll make green, what did I write there? Same as iteration 3, so yes, that's the same as iteration 4, but with green and alpha as variables. And then the view, add 2 new slider instances, and then in the controller we need to connect the new slider instances as outlets and action to the same display color function. Nothing more here. Then the last one is the solution implementation. And step 1, add the 2 new sliders and set their attributes. You notice I'm moving much faster now in this process because I already know what I want it to do. But I want to discipline myself to write it down. It's very important. Maybe this is simple, you didn't write it down, but unless you build the skill and the discipline to follow the process, when you face a big problem, you will not be able to follow the process. So discipline yourself and go through the process, even if it adds a little bit more time. Add the 2 new sliders, connect the sliders as outlets, and then connect the sliders to the display color function. Then we're going to need to add instructions to retrieve the values of the two new sliders and then replace the literal values 0 for green and 1 for alpha with the new values and then test. Alright, very similar to before. So let's go ahead and implement that. So first on the storyboard, so I bring my utility and add two more sliders. So here is one, align it with the others, and maybe we'll make this 5. It was 5, and we'll make this green, and then add another one, and maybe we'll make this 7, 5, and that's gonna represent the alpha. So I'm gonna give this the black color, because that's full opaqueness or 0 opaqueness. The view is still there. Maybe I'll move it down a little bit to make some room, and then need to connect them. So I'll bring my assistant editor, make some room, and then connect the green slider as outlet. So I'm gonna call it slide green, and then connect my alpha slider also as outlet. Then I need to connect them to my function. So connect to the function. You can also connect by selecting the slider, control and drag over the function to select and connect the function. So you can go from the circle from the controller to the interface, or from the interface to the controller, whatever you feel comfortable with. But now I have all 4 sliders connected to the function, and I have each of the sliders. I have one for the alpha, one for the green, one for the blue, and one for the view, and then one for the red. So I'm done with the connections. So all of this is good. Now I need to add instructions. So I'll go back to the regular editor, switch to the view controller. Step number 1, where I need to retrieve the value of the green and the alpha. So let green value equal slide green dot value. Then let alpha value equal slide alpha dot value. Then we construct an instance of the new color. So I used the red value for the value of the red. The green I used 0. So now I need to take out the 0 and put the green value. I use the blue value for the blue and the alpha. So now I am replacing all the literals or all the constants that I had with actual values that from memory. So now everything in the app is dynamic. There are no hard-coded values. I had before hard-coded values of 0, 1. Now everything is dynamic. Everything is generated when the app is running. So let's test it. So I'm done with these 2 steps. And Xcode will build the project, deploy it to the simulator or to the device, and then launch it in the device. You should see the launch screen and then see the different red, blue, alpha, green, and so on. So here is the red. So now I have that. I can put my alpha to 1. Put my blue to 0, put my red to 0, my green to 0, I get the black, green to 1, I get the green, put the blue with the green, put the red, I got yellow, I get white, then take the blue down, I get the yellow, and take the red down, I get that color. Take this, you still have your green. Now you take the alpha down, you see here the transparency, so the opaqueness is reduced, so the color is fading into the underlying color. The underlying color is white, so I am fading to white, and I'll reach the full white when the alpha reaches 0, which is full transparency, and bring back the color as the alpha reaches 100%, which is the full opaqueness of the color. Now this completes this part, but I noticed something here. I like this. There are some neat colors that I create, like this color. What if I want to take that color I created and use it in another software? How can I know what color is this? Will be the colors in digital are represented by the values. So if I am able to know which red value, blue value, green value, alpha value are represented, I can take that to another software and actually use that color that I created. So how can we display whatever value we have right now? So we have the values here. I have the red, the blue, the green. So all I need is to find a way to display something on the screen. I've used that before. We used labels. So if I use label, if I put 4 labels in here and take those red value, blue value, green, and alpha value and put them in the label, I can actually see what those colors are. So this was not an iteration that we had. It wasn't something that we thought about in the beginning. Actually, after finishing iteration 5, we should move to navigation. But as we moved through the project, our vision of what is needed evolves. And it evolved here that we immediately recognize a use case that I want to take that color away from the app, and thus I want to see the values of those. That's a use case that didn't exist in the beginning because we did not see what it will mean when we have the app. Now that we do, we can add additional features. So we're going to come here and add a new feature in this iteration. Before moving to iteration 6, I'm going to call it 5.5, and I will say display the values of the color components. Display the values of the color components. So in this iteration, display the color component value. So we'll follow the same 5.5.1 problem formulation, and we have the scope, and the scope will say display the value of each color component as it changes. And then 2, testing. How would I know that? Testing scenario 1. We have to actually, the issue here as we move is any addition we make to the app, we need to make sure it did not change what was working before. So we need to run all previous tests first. Then we need to say, okay, test it scenario 2. I need to select a value that I know and make sure that the number is showing correct. So maybe set values to 1 and observe the display of 1. And then scenario 3, set to 0. And then scenario 4, set to 50 to 60 to 0.5 to 0.6, 0.5 to 0.6. All right. So then we need to go to solution formulation, the model. I have all the values, but now I need to display them. To display the value may not be observant now. You may say that no change in the model because I have all the values. But the moment you come to the view and ask yourself what component I'm going to use and realize you're going to use an instance of UI label, the UI label takes data that is a text, does not take decimal numbers, calculatable numbers. So I know change in the model. Actually, I need to convert the numbers from the float type to another type called the string. The string type is the type that represents text, and that is the type that the UI label needs. So while I already have all the values, I have them in a type that cannot be assigned to a label. So I have to do type conversion. So welcome to your first type conversion. Actually, you did a little bit of type conversion in module 1 in the random function. But here, almost any program you write, you're going to do some sort of type conversion. So we're going to use labels, which needs text. And to use the label, we will need to, in the controller, we need to connect the labels as outlets and add instructions to the display color function. So now in the display color, in addition to all the previous steps, to all 3 steps, add step 4. And step 4 will be convert the values of the slider components to string type, and then assign the new strings to labels. So here I'm going to need actually 4 labels, 1 for each of the value. So finally, the implementation of this iteration. So step 1 is to add 4 labels and set their attributes. Label or 4 instances of UI label. I'm going to talk software language here. And then connect the 4 instances to the controller as outlets. And then in the display color function, convert the values. So to convert, how do we convert? We're going to ask the string class how to convert, and you'll see that. And then convert the values, and then display in label. And then finally, display in label is actually assign the strings to the text attribute of each label. Convert the values to strings, type, and then test. So let's go ahead and do that. So here is everything, and that's what triggered to me that we need to do some more. So we'll switch to the storyboard, need the utility, and we need to add some labels here. So here is the label. So I'll add the labels. So add them anywhere. I'm going to add them right on top of my sliders. So I need to make some little bit of room between them. So I add the first label. I don't want anything in that label, so I'm going to delete the text from the label. And I'm going to use visual to display what the label is. So I'm going to display the color in red, and I'm going to make the color size is 12. And it's only 1 line. Then I add another one. See the alignment rulers? So align it with the others. So this one will be blue. And 12, the size. Then I'll add a third one. And then this will be green. And the size is 12. And then the last one is the black. So that will leave it black as is. And then put here 12. Alright, so we added 4 labels. Now I need to connect them as outlets. So I'll make some room here for a new label. So here's the label. Connect this. And I'm going to call it the label red. And connect the other one. And I'm going to call it label blue. Then connect the third one, and I'm gonna call it label green. And then the fourth one, and I'm gonna call it label alpha. Right? Cool. So let's go ahead and implement the actual instruction. So I'll go back to the regular editor. So what do I need to do? I add a step number 4. And in step number 4, convert the values to string. And then in step number 5, assign the string values to the label, to the text property, text attribute of the label objects. All right. Let's start with one of them first. Let's start with one of them, see how it looks, so that if there's anything we need to change, we can adjust it and then repeat for the others. So I'll say here I need to convert this red value to a string. So the red value is a float, and the float is not going to assign to, well, let's see. So here is the label red.text, and as you see, the text, the type of text is a string, and the type of the red value is float. So if you try to say red value, see the type is float, and text requires a string. If you do that, you immediately get the red error. And if you click on it, it says cannot assign value of type float to type string. So this is why I need to change that type. Well, there is a quick change that you can do. And that quick change, you can say string and initialize a string with the red value. So I can make that conversion immediately here. Right? No need to step 4. I can convert from the float to the string using the string initializer and assign the result directly to the text property. What did I lose here? I created this anonymous value, and that anonymous value is in memory temporarily, but I have no way of accessing it, which is fine as long as you don't need it again, which in this case I don't need it again. But if you need it again, then doing something like we did in step 1, creating a name for that memory location, then using that name in the following step will be alright. So are you saying, so you may ask, so does this mean we did not really need a step 1? We could have just came here since we never used the red value? I would say, well, we at the time we didn't know we're gonna need the red value, but now you can see we need the red value because we added another step. So let's see if this will give us what we are looking for. Let's run. And I did something bad. I forgot to commit again. So once we run this, we should commit iteration 5. Although I already added that new iteration in there. Yeah, I need to do something. Maybe me worrying about the recording and everything, I forget to the commit. But right, once we've done that, we'll make a commit. So here is the red, and I can see the label. So it is actually working. I can see the 0.63. If I go to 1, here is my 1. If I go to 0, here is my 0. But notice in between, the label is actually cut off. I can see it from those 3 dots, meaning that there's more values to display. And I can see it here. There's like 3 values. And so it's a float value which has so many numbers. So I don't like that we have an app with the label cut off. So the label cannot be cut off. So we need to find a way. If you need those digits, I need to format that number so there is no cut off like that. So to format the string number, this quick conversion is not really going to work. You have to look for another function of the string class to do that formatting. Since it's going to be a function and a lot of work, let's actually do that step 4. So let red as string. So this is the name of the variable, the red value as a string. It is still in the string class, but there is a function called string or localized string with format. The localized string format allow you to specify particular format for your string and then assign values that need to be formatted. So the format has to be a string itself. We call it string literal, constant. When we used 0, we typed 0, and that was a number constant. A string constant is something between double quotations. So anything between double quotation is a string constant. That constant is a special one because it will provide formatting and instruction for what comes next, which is templated here as arguments. My argument is the red value. So what I need is how can I format that red value as a floating number. So I need to put a special string called format specifier. The format specifier. It starts with a percent and then the letter F. F for float. So the format specifier F to specify format of a float type. Once you do that, you have to put the comma with a float number right after it. Now, if you leave it like that, it will display the same thing that we had. So we need to limit the decimals. So I'll say I want a decimal point, but I only want 2 digits after the decimal. Or maybe you want 3 or 4, whatever you want. And then use that string read as a string as the assignment to the text property. So let's see if this will resolve the string format issue. And if it does, then we know how to deal with all the other. So see why I wanted to start just with red, because we went some way and then realized that it cuts off the string and it is not really displayed the way we like it to display. So we had to make some adjustments. So adjusting on one variable is much quicker and easier than if we had to repeat this for all of them. So here is this, and it's only displaying 2 digits. So only 2 digits are displayed from the 1 all the way to the 0. There is another way to display, by the way, and that is integer from 0 to 255. If you dealt with colors, you probably noticed that a lot of the software that used to color, they ask you to enter a number between 0 to 255 for the red component or the green or the blue, not really a float number. If you want to display the value in the 255 format, all you need to do is to multiply the red value by 255. And in that case, you don't really need any decimal point, so I can make this 0. So no decimals at all. So let's now see this. So here is the number 255 maximum and 0. And all the numbers that go in between. This looks better, so I'm going to do that for all the others. So now we can go ahead and say let blue as string equals string dot localize the string with format %.0f, and in the argument the blue value multiplied by 255. Then the same for the green. And the %0f, and then the green value multiplied by 255. And then you have the alpha, but the alpha is tricky because the alpha is a percentage opaqueness. So we need to display the alpha in a percent format. So we'll say this is still a 0 decimal, 0 decimal, but I need to put a percent sign after that. So I use the special character and then my percent sign. And then here I use the alpha. and I'll multiply the alpha by 100 now, because I go from 0 to 100%, 100% meaning fully opaque, 0 meaning that there's no opaqueness, so on. So now I set the label, so label blue dot text property equal blue as a string, and then label green text property green as string, and then label alpha text property, and then alpha as a string. So let's see. A little bit worried about the alpha, that it might be too many characters for the width of the label. So if so, we might need to make the alpha label wider. No, I think we're good. So here is that, and my alpha 100%, everything is cool. So now our labels are displaying some values, and you can make any adjustments that you want to these to get a representation of the color. So now if you like that color, now you know all the different values of that color, and you can take it with you and use it. So this concludes the first part. If you are taking this class, that's your part 1. And then we start part 2 with the navigation. What we need to do now is to take that color and navigate to another screen, and we'll do that in the second iteration. Before I leave, let's commit, say completed iterations 5 and the new 5.5 to display the values on the screen, and then push, commit to files and push. So now my source code repository is up to date, and we're ready to move on to the next iteration.